Well, a feud between the Federal Treasurer and the Reserve Bank has escalated this morning after the Treasurer laid blame for a sluggish Australian economy on the RBA's 13 rate rises. Joining us live now, the Liberal Senator Hollie Hughes, the Assistant Defence Minister Matt Thistlethwaite. Good morning to you both. Matt, we'll start with you. Pretty strong intervention here. Doesn't the RBA, though, just react to market forces, which the government has a big role in?
I think that the Treasurer is pointing out that the successive rate rises peaked and cost of living pressures associated with the COVID supply chains, with international events and the war in Ukraine have had a dramatic effect on households and small businesses. And that's slowed the economy, and we don't want to see the Reserve Bank go too far. We want to make sure that we do continue to grow as an economy and, importantly, that people remain in employment. So I think that the Treasurer is signalling there that these are important decisions. Interest rates are determined independently. That'll be the same under whoever's in government, but we just don't want them to go too far, and they're the considerations that they have to take into when they make their next rate decision.
Over to you, Hollie.
Wow, Matt, congratulations actually being able to say COVID. You know, this is a term that this government has completely lost sight that we were in a pandemic, if they've cast blame back over the previous government at every opportunity. This is actually extraordinary, this attack this morning. The RBA is independent, but it does react with monetary policy in response to this absolutely reckless spending we're seeing from this government. $315 billion worth of new spending by this government is why we're seeing such sticky inflation. Why, unlike every other country, Western economy, that's inflation is dropping, ours is remaining very, very stable and way too high. We know Australians are continuing to pay for this government's inability to manage its own spending. And when we look at the costs that are up, families are having to find an extra $35,000 a year just to maintain the same standard of living they had under the previous government. And it's quite extraordinary that the Treasurer is now trying to deflect to the RBA. Perhaps if the Treasurer spent less time making personal attacks on Peter Dutton and more time focused on his own government's rampant spending, we might see a change to some of these economic figures.
Matt, these comments by the Treasurer today, is it not just a cynical ploy to distract from bad data that's expected this Wednesday?
Well, I think he's pointed to the facts. Just replying to what Hollie said there, inflation was twice as high under the previous government. It was at 6.1%.
Interest rates were?
When we were elected. It's now down at 3.5%. So we're basically halved inflation.
You just literally quoted the COVID supply chains issue. You literally just quoted COVID. That was why inflation was where it was. There aren't those issues anymore. Make up your mind.
So we've halved inflation. We've maintained basically full employment, which is quite remarkable. But at the same time, we've been able to assist households and small businesses to get through this difficult period with tax cuts, with energy rebates, with cheaper medicines, with cheaper childcare. We just want to make sure that the economy continues to grow and, importantly, that people stay in employment. And they're the considerations that we'd like the RBA to take into consideration when they meet again.
Well, when you say you don't want the RBA to go too high, are you suggesting you don't want another rate rise? Is that what you're urging here?
Well, it's a tough one. You know, you've got to make a call about when you start to moderate, because we know that some of these indicators are lagged indicators. It's like trying to turn around a cruise ship. It takes a while before you see the effect. So they're the factors that the RBA has to take into consideration. There's been a reduction in expenditure from households. There's been a reduction from the government. We're doing the same thing as households are doing. We're saving more than we're spending, and that's been affecting household budgets. And that's why the Treasurer's made these comments, and he's completely right.
But are you saying you don't want the RBA to raise rates again?
Well, that's a matter for the RBA. We're saying that we want them to take into consideration the effect that the rate rises have already had on households and small businesses, and we don't want them to go too far. But that's a consideration that the RBA needs to make in their decision making.
That's leading the witness, though, a bit there, isn't it? Is it not?
No, I think it's perfectly reasonable for the government to point out that households have really been smashed in their incomes when it comes to what's going on with interest rates and inflation. And we all know that. And we want to make sure that the RBA doesn't go too far.
Okay, Hollie, according to Newspoll today, 41% of respondents don't think the coalition would do any better when it comes to tackling inflation. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it wasn't, incomplete 41% don't think it'd be better. There was a higher number that did consider it would be lower under a coalition government versus who think it's going to be lower under a continued Labor government. It's just extraordinary that the Labor Party doesn't they don't want the interest rate rise. They want the RBA to consider the impact those interest rate rises are having on families, all the while claiming they're making it cheaper for families to survive. It's an absolute furphy. We need this government to come out and say what they really think, and that Australians have never had it so good under them, as they keep telling us they're doing all these wonderful things, while Australians are actually finding it tougher and tougher every day. And they're finding it tougher in absolutely every area. We know that a lot of this inflation is being due by energy prices that are continuing to rise, even with this energy rebate that they've given straight to the energy companies in a bid to reduce inflation. We're still seeing electricity and gas prices going through the roof. Mm-hmm. This contributes along the supply chain absolutely everywhere. And so by the coalition looking to do things such as reduce red tape, which we know this government loves not only red tape but green tape, but ensuring that we've got reliable and affordable energy means that everything along the supply chain reduces cost. And this government is on a rampant renewables only scheme costing an absolute fortune and less reliable power. Okay. All of which is contributing to these increases in costs.
Yeah. Okay, Matt, Hollie, appreciate it as always. Thank you.